Number 9. Eduardo Aravalo. In December of 2019, a teenager from the Colony, Texas, was arrested for killing his older sister, who was 8 months pregnant at the time. 19-year-old Eduardo Aravalo told officers that he'd strangled his sister Viridiana, aged 23, when they were alone in the house. His confession came after the young woman's body was discovered in a neighborhood alley. Aravalo reportedly told officers that he'd killed her because she was an embarrassment to her family. Viridiana struggled with depression, but was reportedly looking forward to becoming a mother. A suicide note was also found, but Aravalo confessed to writing it as well. According to him, he'd initially buried her body about an hour north of the Colony, before moving it to the alley, which was roughly a mile from their home. Aravalo was charged with capital murder, but his oldest sibling didn't believe he'd done it, describing him as a kind and positive young man. Number 8. Elizavita Dobrovina. In 2016, a Russian woman was accused of brutally murdering and mutilating her younger sister. 22-year-old Elizavita Dobrovina was said to have been jealous of her model sister, 17-year-old Stefania, but would also reportedly try to emulate her image. They were believed to be close, and both had spent time in orphanages as children. The killing took place at the St. Petersburg apartment of Stefania's 44-year-old alleged lover, Alexei Fativ, while he'd gone out to buy some wine. It was reported that shortly before her death, Stefania had posed for nude photos to boost her modeling career. Friends denied rumors that she'd appeared in adult films or worked as an escort. While they were alone in the apartment, Elizavita, in a drug and jealousy-fueled rage, attacked her sister. Stefania was stabbed 189 times, leaving her body unrecognizable. Elizavita had also gouged her eyes out and cut off her ears. Fativ returned to a horrific scene and detained the woman until law enforcement arrived. Elizavita would later accuse him of the murder, but police and prosecutors said the man wasn't under any suspicion. Elizavita was charged with the killing and sent to a psychiatric facility until she'd be deemed fit to stand trial. Number 7. Kevon Watkins. On February the 2nd of 2018, an argument over a Wi-Fi password resulted in the death of a 20-year-old woman from Mason, Georgia. 16-year-old Kevon Watkins had changed the Wi-Fi password so that he could play video games without his family slowing down the connection. A fight broke out between the teenager and his mother. His sister, Alexis, joined the argument, afraid that Kevon was going to become physical with their mother. Kevon and Alexis came to blows and the fight ended up on the ground. Kevon put his sister in a chokehold and threatened to beat their mother when she tried to break them up. Consequently, the woman called the police. Kevon only let go of his sister when ordered to do so by officers. By that time, he'd been choking her for upwards of 15 minutes. The woman was given CPR at the scene, but later that day was declared dead from asphyxiation at a local hospital. In the aftermath, Kevon was sentenced to life in prison. Number 6. Thomas Parkinson Freeman. 23-year-old Thomas Parkinson Freeman accidentally shot his twin brother Matthias in October of 2020 after they were both irresponsibly handling firearms. Thomas, Matthias, and a friend, whose name wasn't released, were inside a Nissan Pathfinder parked in front of their home. As a joke, Matthias pulled out a gun on his twin. Thomas had formerly worked as a security officer and was wearing the gun belt from his previous job. He also brandished a gun but pulled the trigger as he pointed it towards his brother. Matthias was shot in the face and died at the scene. When questioned by the authorities, Thomas said that he wasn't acting in self-defense, as he'd known Matthias wasn't actually going to shoot him. He had no idea why he'd squeezed the trigger, but assumed it was a reflex from the training he'd previously received. Thomas, who had no prior criminal history, was charged with second-degree manslaughter. Number 5. Azumi Muto. On December the 30th of 2006, a Japanese man murdered his younger sister in gruesome fashion as revenge for her teasing him. 20-year-old Azumi Muto was a pin-up model and aspiring actress who worked for a Tokyo agency. She would reportedly tease her brother Yuki, aged 21, for having no ambition and repeatedly failing his college exams. According to prosecutors, he suffered a psychotic break. He struck her with a wooden sword and strangled her with a towel before drowning her at their home. in Tokyo's Shibuya ward. Yuki then used a saw and a large knife to hack her body to pieces. He slashed off her breasts and genitals and threw them down a garbage disposal so that police wouldn't be able to identify the victim's gender. Other pieces he hid throughout his room. On January the 4th, Yuki was arrested and ultimately sentenced to 12 years in prison. Psychiatrists determined that he was criminally insane at the time of the murder. Japanese tabloids speculated on the case, postulating that Yuki was a cannibal or that he'd had an incestuous interest in Azumi. The claims were, however, rejected by the prosecutor's office. Number 4. Elizabeth and Andrew Hawes. In late October of 2008, 46-year-old Edwin Hawes was attacked outside his home in Andover, Minnesota. The authorities found blood on the exterior of his house and on the undercarriage of his Volkswagen Passat, as well as a pool of blood in the driveway. The man's charred remains, identified by dental records, were discovered 2 days later at a farm owned by his 37-year-old brother, Andrew. For years, Edwin had been feuding with Andrew and their 43-year-old sister, Elizabeth. They had accused Edwin of embezzling funds from the family's landscaping business, while he had had restraining orders against both of them. Andrew was even charged with first-degree assault after reportedly trying to run his brother over and threatening to kill him. According to Elizabeth's husband, she and Andrew had openly talked about killing Edward in front of him, but claimed he didn't believe they'd be capable of doing so. The Volkswagen Passat, a company car, had become the latest object of violent bickering between Edwin and Andrew. The latter was driven by his fiancée to Edwin's home, planning to repossess the vehicle along with Elizabeth. It was there that Edwin was shot with a crossbow, struck in the head with a baseball bat and run over. The murder weapons, painted in matte black, were discovered at the scene. Someone had also tried to cover up the attack by clumsily pouring bleach on the concrete. The authorities went to investigate the bonfire reported at Andrew's Westbrook farm and had their suspicions that the siblings were somehow involved in Edwin's disappearance. Elizabeth was also at the scene, and when questioned by the authorities, one of the first things she replied was, "That's not my brother in there." Both siblings would later receive mandatory life sentences after Edwin's remains were retrieved and they were tied to the killing. One mystery, however, was never elucidated. Inside the fire pit, the police found the jawbone, an eye socket, and part of a lower leg that didn't belong to Edwin. Number 3. Robert Majika. In August of 2018, Kevin Majika felt a foul smell coming from behind the family mobile home in Clinton Township, Michigan. He went inside a shed and found that the stench was coming from several garbage bags. He opened them and inside found the remains of his sister, 18-year-old Danielle Majika, and her boyfriend, 19-year-old Seren Bryan. The pair had been missing for several days. The investigators used blood detection spray and the double murder was traced back to the victim's other brother, Robert, aged 24. He'd bound Danielle and her boyfriend before using a hammer to crush their skulls. A medical examiner determined that they'd ultimately suffocated with garbage bags over their heads after Robert had disposed of them. A roll of tape and the hammer were also found inside the bags. The police tracked down Robert a few days later to Cincinnati. He was found wearing a hat, sunglasses, and a long blonde wig. He was arrested and subsequently showed no remorse in court regarding the double murder. The judge would describe him as an evil man, and he was sentenced to life without parole. Today's topic was requested by Sean Delap and Amy Collette. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Farni Lauria. In 2016, a fight between siblings escalated to murder in Washington Heights, New York City. 21-year-old Farni Lauria and her brother Jeffrey, who was 2 years younger, had been bickering in the early hours of the morning. Neighbors reported that they'd heard shouting, with each of the siblings telling the other to shut up. Their mother was vacationing in Mexico at the time. At a certain point, the argument turned physical and Jeffrey slapped Farni across the face. Enraged, the young woman grabbed a kitchen knife and plunged it into his chest. The woman confessed to a responding NYPD officer at the door of the apartment. Jeffrey was rushed to Columbia University Medical Center, where he was later pronounced dead. It's unclear whether Farni was charged with murder or manslaughter in the aftermath. Number 1. Shigenaga Tomioka. In 2017, a long-standing succession feud left 3 people dead at the Tomioka Hajimangu, a well-known shrine in Tokyo. In the past, 58-year-old Nagako Tomioka had received threatening letters from her brother, Shigenaga, who was 2 years her junior. As Nagako, a Shinto priestess at the shrine, was getting out of a car, she was confronted by Shigenaga. He was joined by a woman in her 30s, later reported by the authorities as his wife. She attacked Nagako's driver with a katana, inflicting injuries to his chest and shoulder. The driver escaped the ambush and survived. Shigenaga then used the samurai sword to stab his sister through the chest and slash her on the back of the neck. She died at the scene. Shigenaga and his wife then moved to a different part of the shrine's grounds. It was there that he stabbed her to death before turning the blade on himself. Aside from the 3 bodies, the police also found the sword and multiple knives at the scene. Thanks for watching. What's the worst trouble that you and your sibling or best friend have gotten yourselves into? Let us know in the comments section below.